Hello and welcome to the FHA Insider Podcast, where we sit down with food and beverage and hospitality's movers and shakers to discuss trends, current affairs, and industry buzz. Today we're here with Victor Mah, President of the ASEAN Coffee Federation. Welcome, Victor. We're so glad to have you on the show. How are things?
Well, things are okay, bearing in mind the present situation. I think, as long as we stay safe and in good health and drink more coffee, that should be sufficient. Thank you.
Certainly. So speaking of coffee, well, it has been a challenging couple of years for the industry, hasn't it? I mean, I read recently a report by Market Watch that said in 2019, coffee prices surged like crazy. And, this year we're all having to struggle with, the effects of COVID. So I'm wondering if there has been any sort of like snowball effect and if there are any long-term challenges that you foresee the industry having to cope with.
Yes, definitely COVID has affected the coffee market for both parts, the producing side as well as the consumption side. What's happened, although the situation is getting much better now, when it started, of course, there were problems on the farm getting labor to come and harvest your coffee or to look after the coffee plants. And the other situation was the logistics side of it, where there was a jam up on containers and the free flow of coffee out of producing countries to consuming countries. There was a bit of a backlog because of that, yeah.
Okay.
So, but I think that's slowly being overcome, yeah.
Right, and the countries, the producing countries that you mentioned, is this Vietnam and Brazil, or are there other countries that?
For most of the countries, Vietnam, Brazil, Colombia, the Central American countries like Costa Rica, Guatemala, even the African countries too. Yeah, because most of the containers were just stuck in ports. There was no movement at all, or very little movement. I wouldn't say there was no complete movement. Yeah.
Right, I see. And the kind of beans that they were exporting at, was it just mostly Arabica, or was this also across to other varieties?
Both. Main Arabicas as well as Robustas coming out from Vietnam and Indonesia. I mean, as you know, Vietnam is the world's largest producer of Robusta coffee. So there was a little bit of a slowdown there. But I think the Vietnamese cope very well in getting their coffee moved out. Yeah.
Okay. In what way do you mean that they cope very well?
Well, I think the whole logistics movement, getting the coffee down from the producing areas up in the Central Highlands down to the port and shipping it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they did pretty well there. Same, likewise with Indonesia, there was a bit of a slowdown, but I think people adjusted to getting coffee moving out. Yeah.
Okay. And so that's on the supply and production side, but on the side of the coffee shop owners, like how are they dealing? Like the ones in the Southeast Asian region, how are they dealing with the fallout?
Well, I think in the ASEAN region, of course, like everywhere else, we had a complete slowdown in terms of, a lot of people had lockdowns. We in Singapore, we had our circuit breaker, and that sort of, all the cafes were closed, and even the bigger operators like Starbucks and had their operations closed down. So what they switched to doing, of course, takeaways, and I mean, of course, their volume dropped a fair bit. Yeah, but most of them, I would say, have managed to cope quite well. But as in most of the ASEAN countries, they're more or less getting back to opening up their stores, although with social distancing and all that. Of course, their volume has dropped a fair bit.
Right.
But I think they are coping quite okay at the moment. But my concern is that if we get hit by a second wave, then I think that would cause a lot of headaches. Because one must remember, a lot of the cafes are run by owner-operators, who are passionate about their trade. And, it's their livelihood, so they've had to work very hard on it. And hopefully, it doesn't, we don't get whacked out by a second wave, yeah. Because, in ASEAN, this is the cafe scene has been a very vibrant one, and it's growing very rapidly. Or was growing very rapidly until this COVID situation.
Right. Yeah. Certainly, the second wave is a concern for every industry, really,
Yes.
and and for that, like COVID, it forced many of these industries to innovate and come up with very interesting
Yes.
new
Yeah.
products. So, what are some innovations that you've perhaps noticed in the
Well,
coffee industry?
I think what's happened is, I mean, of course, there's you see a lot of home consumption now because everybody's working from home. I mean, but going back to your last question there, I think the cafes which have been more hard hit have been those which have been in the central business districts, where you've had a total drop in people coming by to buy coffee for their morning coffee. Yeah, and innovations. Yes, a lot of the cafes have been putting out more towards the cold drinks, cold brew based coffees, and hot coffees, of course. Doing lattes and cappuccinos, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to foam the milk, and the transportation will affect the looks of your delivery, right? Of course, home consumption. I think if you look at domestic consumption at home, on my own personal observations, I've seen and talking to some of our members who are doing capsules, they said volumes have gone up quite substantially over this period of time. Like maybe 30, 40, 50%, some of them have gone up by, depending on their style or what type of capsules they're using. And of course, the other, it's not a new innovation, it's been around in Japan for many, many years, is the single cup drip bag coffee. That seems to have also moved along. Of course, I think the instant coffee side, the soluble coffee side, that has, I think that you would see a big spike in home consumption on that one. Yeah. And not so much on 3-in-1s, probably not in Singapore, maybe in some of the other ASEAN countries you might see that.
Right, like a more premium kind of soluble coffee in a sense.
Yes, soluble coffee. More the upper end soluble coffees. Yeah.
Okay, so earlier you mentioned a little bit about home delivery. So everybody in the F&B and hospitality industry is going online. Whether it's like delivery cocktails, delivery pasta kits. So particularly in the space of commerce, like what do you think are some digital opportunities that the coffee industry you think has room for improvement, or like some stuff that they have not fully utilized?
I think the move towards cold brew coffee is the one which is there, and then more on the capsule sides, more towards like trying to innovate, and even in the drip bags on single origins now. Instead of coming out with blends, they're trying to push forward more single origins with good write-ups about where the coffee is from, the production, the processing, and what the cup profile is like. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
And I think that's where you'll see, more or less, it's become an educational opportunity for the coffee scene, to educate more people who would normally not probably go to a cafe. Right?
And this education is happening online, you think? Like, is it through social media, through the websites?
Yes, definitely on social media. A lot of it. Yeah, most of the independent cafes are very savvy on social media. Yeah.
Okay, and do you think online is going to be a mainstay for the coffee, after COVID? Because seeing how coffee is such an intrinsically tangible experience. Like, I'm in a cafe right now and I'm drinking my coffee and it smells so nice, but that is something that you don't really get to experience at home. And like I feel like going to a cafe back in the day when it first became so trendy, it was part of this whole experience.
I think for the present moment, yes, you'll see the domestic consumption moving along. But I mean, in ASEAN and especially in Asia, socializing is very much part of our culture. So I personally, I expect once this COVID situation we get over this thing with vaccine coming in soon, or we can control it better, I think you will see a move towards people going back towards the cafes to get their caffeine and their socializing back to the norms. Anyway, that's something which I hope for, and I'm quite sure we will get back to it. But it's going to take a bit of time. That's the only problem there. Yeah.
Certainly. And do you think so? Going to a cafe, there are like different tiers. So you have the tier of going to like a local coffee place, like a Yakun, for example.
Yes.
And then you have the high end ones, like in Singapore. You'd be talking about like Jewel or Dimbula Coffee, for example. So do you think COVID has impacted these two tiers, for example, like very differently?
Yes, definitely so. I think when we had a total shutdown, everybody got hit by it. The volumes have dropped. But I think if you look at it now, I think the market, which is moving fast back to recovery, will be the local kopitiams. Yeah. Somehow, whether we like it or not, we still fall back to what we've been brought up on. Yeah. The kopitiams will always be around. They'll never die, or they'll never fade away, right?
Right.
So I've seen that, because if you go to, like in Singapore, okay, you go to the heartland, and you see people are drinking coffee. And don't forget, look at our recent elections. If you looked at all the shots, everybody was sitting down drinking. The opposition and the other people are all sitting down drinking coffee, right? Did you notice that?
Yeah, it's such a thing.
Yeah. So I think that will pick up faster there. The top end ones, I expect some of them would have a little bit of a struggle, but I mean the more established ones, would do okay. I think. I've seen, since going back, since the circuit breaker has gone into phase 2 in Singapore, I've noticed like places like PPP, for instance, which was formerly known as Papa Paita, right? Yes. The crowd is back there, and even the more sort of open or more common chains like Providor and Starbucks and all those, the crowd is there coming, although the full volume is not there yet, right?
Right.
That's the thing, which I find it very encouraging, and I hope that they will continue to move towards that direction with phase 2 here and going on to open up further.
Yeah, on to phase 3 where the
well,
new normal,
hopefully.
and hopefully we'll start seeing these coffee shops all full again.
Hopefully. I think we're all watching carefully the community part of the figures which come out every day. As long as I think we can keep it at a decent level, we should get there. Yeah.
Hopefully back soon.
Yep.
So earlier we also spoke a little bit about online and digital opportunities, right? So I understand that the ASEAN Coffee Federation is going to be hosting a coffee auction.
Yes.
So can you just tell us a little more about this? I've never heard of a coffee auction before.
Well, last year, the Singapore Coffee Association held one in Singapore. Of course, it was an open outcry and a physical one. Everybody was there. And we had already planned, the ASEAN Coffee Federation had already in its planning, we were looking at having one in Seoul. May, I think, but because of the present situation, of course, we couldn't do it. So what we have decided on is to hold the Singapore Coffee Association is going to hold a coffee auction in Singapore. We are planning it for 1st of October, which is Coffee Day for the world.
Okay.
And we are at the moment getting people interested, those who want to come in and participate in it. The farmers, the producers. This will be, of course, a specialty coffee one, where you have small lots, we're going to limit to 30 kilos a lot, right?
Okay.
And, as I said, it'll be virtual, of course, and we've got the support, very much good support from the Singapore Enterprise Fund, Enterprise Singapore, which has been very, very supportive of us on this trying to get this going, right? So we're now coming out with a little bit more information about it. I've got a very good committee working on it with our executive director, with a team of young boys, young men, I would say, right, who are involved in the coffee trade, right?
Okay.
From Olam, from Ecom, and from Bero, who are well versed in trading of coffee and quality and all that. So we hopefully we're looking at about 40 lots or 44 lots of coffee, right?
Okay, that sounds very exciting.
It's going to be very good. We're getting some feedback coming back already, because we've been talking to some of the embassies here, like the Colombians, the Panamanians, and they're very keen on it, and we've got very, very good response from them, and we're getting some feedback from them, some information on what type of coffee they want to put up and all that from some of their more specialty farms in places like Colombia and Panama, and even from Zambia as well. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So really from all over the world.
It's going to be from all over the world. The ASEAN Coffee Federation auction will be strictly on ASEAN coffees only, right? That one, we are hopeful, as I said, maybe in November this year, back in Korea, in Seoul, we will try and hold that, but keep our fingers crossed. With this present situation, we don't know. That one, unfortunately, we can't look at doing a virtual one on that one yet. But this one, which is it's a worldwide coffee sort of thing. Yeah.
Right. And this initiative is going to be for everyone from farm to cup, basically. So all across the entire supply chain. So as like an end consumer, for example, like what can I expect if I want to take part in this coffee auction? Like, can I just go in and go to the website and view, or
We'll put up on the website, and you can see what are the coffees coming up. In fact, if you're interested in it, you can ask for a sample for you to sell. Yeah, because so that you say, okay, oh wow, this lot is interesting to me. I want to look at buying it, right? And I like the cup profiles. I think it's suitable for my cafe or for my outlets, whatever it is, right? And then when it comes to bidding, we'll come up with the full description, or the full description of the coffee will already be available, and you bid on it. Yeah, so it'll be in virtual, as I say. We'll have an auctioneer there, and he'll be running it through. And once if you're successful, the payment is, nowadays you can do it immediately, right? Through your credit card or PayPal or whatever it is, right? So it'll be immediate, and we will arrange to send your winning lot to you.
Oh wow! Okay, that sounds amazing. Will there also be like talks and I don't know, like keynote sessions, for example, by growers or baristas?
We are looking at putting up something like that, just to talk about specialty coffee in general, not in particular, the particular lots in the auction, unless unless that buyer has already, or that person who's interested in it has already cupped the coffee and he said, wow, this is something I want. I think it's going to be very interesting. Yeah. So we're looking at the farms giving the description of their own coffee, what it's like, what's in the cup, and all that sort. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Exciting
stuff.
Yeah.
It looks. We are keeping our fingers crossed. We hope that it will get it off, and it'll be run, successfully. Yeah.
Certainly, of course. We're very much looking forward to it. Okay, so last question,
Yeah,
bearing in mind
sure.
that you are a very busy man.
No, 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 no,
So
no.
what is next? What do you think is next for the world of coffee, post-COVID? Well, what is going to be a new normal?
Well, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for the coffee world to get back to norm, right? Firstly, I mean, one of our main concerns in ASEAN is that we have to look after our producers, our farmers, yeah, because in this time it's very tough for them, with prices, the coffee price being almost at all-time lows. Just if you're looking at Arabicas, it's just bouncing around $1
Okay.
of that, right? It's Robustus likewise. So we have to try and look at to sustain them. That wonderful word of sustainability. Yeah. How can we help the farmers to sustain their income, to ensure that they continue growing coffee, looking after their coffees, instead of switching over to some other crop or to domestic food supplies or whatever. Yeah, that's a very important thing, because if you don't have your coffee, there ain't going to be any coffee towards you. Right?
This is a horrible
That's a
prospect.
horrible. Yes. So yeah, that's our main concern at the moment in ASEAN, to maintain the whole supply chain from farm to cup. Yeah, we're trying to emphasize a little bit more on the farming side. How to with sustainability, with climate change. Yeah, that climate change has affected a lot on in terms of agricultural products, not only in coffee but as well as other products. Yeah, so there's something we've got to look at, and of course upfront we're looking at doing a lot more training programs for the front end, the baristas and cafe owners and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the supply chain is long. In between, of course, you've got the logistics side.
It
How do we
certainly
get
is,
people interested in going into the logistics side of the business? Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
but it sounds like despite all the challenges, it sounds like coffee is still going to be safe. It's still going to be around. We're not going to have to worry too much about not being able to have coffee, because that is just horrifying.
I think you have to always remember that coffee is one of the cheapest beverages in the world. I think it's probably the cheapest per cup if you look at it, right?
Right.
Yeah. If you, even if you're talking about the specialty end, yeah, that may be a little bit pricey, but for the average person, a cup of coffee is still something which they can manage. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Certainly, it's a comfort.
Yes, it's great. I mean,
comfort in a cup that won't go away.
Yeah. I mean, you look at our local kopitiams. You see everywhere. I mean, it's still a cheap beverage. $1.20, $1.80, $2 even. Yeah. It's still there. Yeah. Of course, the other event which we are looking at, we are planning at the moment is the Coffee Week in Singapore, right? That we're looking at November. Once again, keeping our fingers crossed that the situation. There will be more B2C, event, which will be open to a lot of consumers. We're getting a lot of good response, and I think if COVID situation improves a lot, that's something which would be worth looking at rolling up and taking a look around. Yeah, because
Alright,
we are looking at a whole range of coffees for home consumption. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
So it looks like
yeah.
we have quite a bit to look forward to at the end of the year.
Yes.
And hopefully the end of the year on a much more
Yeah.
positive note than it has started.
Yes. End of the year and 2021. I think first half we've got quite a few events which have been pushed back to 2020. Right.
Right. Yeah.
A lot like Food&HospitalityAsia and all those sort of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So all right. Fingers crossed.
Yep. Well, now we've got to keep our fingers crossed on all this. Yes.
All right, Victor. Thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat with us. I'm gonna go off and grab myself a cup of coffee right now after all this talk.
Do that. Yes. I'm just going for my second cup of long black.